A financial revolution is only useful when ordinary people can understand what is changing. Terms such as tokenization, blockchain, and digital wallets, along with liquidity, may sound complex, but beneath the language is a familiar idea. Businesses need capital, investors seek opportunity, and financial markets connect the two. Bahamas Ovryde proposes using digital technology to make that connection faster, more transparent, and potentially more accessible. But how does a real company become a digital investment? What does an investor actually own? Who protects the asset? And how does the platform ensure there is a real market rather than another digital promise with no substance behind it? Tonight, we go inside the technology and the commercial strategy behind the proposed venture. Stay with us as we get started on the other side of this break. And welcome back to On the Record. Tonight we want to welcome Sean Prescott. He's a software architect, a blockchain specialist, and a quantitative trading expert who has spent more than 2 decades developing technology for banks, exchanges, and institutional financial markets. Sir, welcome to On the Record.
Thank you so much.
Now, that's a very long title. So I want to start a little bit by helping our folks to understand what it is specifically that you do in your line of work.
Well, starting just to give it a little base understanding, I'm a computer scientist and then moved into the financial industry very early in my career. Growing up in Switzerland, working for all the major banks and exchanges around the European financial market, of course, helped drive that kind of understanding of the different industries across the globe. I've always been around moving very sensitive data at breakneck speeds, making sure that it is secure, obviously, and practical to the business side of things, right? Okay. So I would say that kind of aspect of what I do or did back in the day has just translated into more modern technology like the blockchain space.
So before we discuss blockchain, what kind of financial systems were you building earlier on that have helped to prepare you for this new technology?
Yeah, good question. So baseline is one of my first jobs out of school was at the Swiss Stock Exchange, right? So I was part of the developer team and the support team that made sure that we were supervising the markets. So that gave me a great way in to understand what the markets are, how the banks interact with each other, make sure what the trading rules are, et cetera, and all that. Later went on to get my derivatives trader license as well, and I took time off from IT to be a trader full time. Did that for a couple of years, and then really just combined forces from my educational background in IT over into the financial sector. And that's where ultimately it exploded into consulting for bigger banks, insurances, national security agencies, et cetera, in the government sector. Really just protecting data, digital identities, digital assets was a term that was sort of being coined at the time before it was really something that, happened in the blockchain sphere.
Based on your experience, what are some of the weaknesses that you observed even then with the traditional financial infrastructure?
There's a lot of legacy involved, right? So one of the bigger mandates that I worked on up in Germany for a bigger exchange was that they had computer systems from the 80s and 90s still running, and the reason why we replaced it, why we replaced it is because they were getting too slow to actually process all the trades of the day and reopen on time the next day, right? Wow. So it's there's a lot of old technology out there kind of just holding together on hopes, wishes, and dreams at this point that desperately need replacement and updating. So and that holds true. Technical debt is something that unfortunately is almost inevitable in larger financial institutions, just because don't touch a working system is kind of the paradigm in those infrastructures. Yeah.
Not just in financial services, by the way.
Yes.
How did you become involved with the Ovryde partnership?
So my career has been about building tech, right? So it's about building the infrastructure, the tool set, by deeply understanding both worlds being the IT world and the financial world, and translating. And then through my years of being a consultant and project manager, I was the translator between those two parties, right? Understanding what the trader needed, make sure the IT department understood what and how to implement so that, this business can function. And expanding into that, that's kind of how this came to be, where I've built, over 2 decades essentially, secure systems in a way that allows for these weaknesses that the current financial industry has, and other industries as well, to really break out of that in a transparent, safe, solid kind of foundation.
Okay, I want to talk about what makes building financial infrastructure different from building a normal consumer application.
Yeah. If a consumer application, let's say, a social media platform goes down or isn't available, it's not great for the business. Ad revenue is their driver, not great, but, they'll resume a few minutes, few hours later, fine. In the financial sector, where you have thousands, millions of people standing at the payment terminal, putting in their credit card, and it doesn't work, that is very bad. That drowns the economy right there. Much, much wider problem and impact, basically just, the entire impact zone there, ground zero for that is terrible. Versus on a social media or a website, corporate website, it being down for a bit. It's not great reputationally, but it doesn't have a full economic black hole that appears from that. So we have to be on it all the time, available all the time, redundancies all the time. Those are the kind of infrastructure considerations we have to take.
Let's talk a little bit about what does a digital token legally represent?
Mm-hmm. A token is, let's think about it as a contract, just a normal paper contract between two parties, right? So if I'm in the real estate space and I have, my deed or, my title on the house or even a car or whatever it is, it can be virtually anything. That is just a simple paper form. Now, the token is the digital representation of such a contract. Some people might have heard the word smart contract as well, in place of what a token is. And the major difference is it's not just a entry in a database or, we stored, what's going on, because that can be manipulated, can be changed, right? People can just, amend that or do something with it that obviously is illegal, but it can still be done. A token changes that. A token adds in cryptography. It adds in proofs. It adds in abilities to verify what the current state is from the outside. So you don't have to trust the bank that they have the papers in the safety deposit box as they claim. You can verify that everything is in place and has never been changed, and everybody's happy with that. So there's proof to tokens versus otherwise not.
So I guess the other question is the token itself the asset, or is the evidence of rights to an underlying asset? Which is it? Is it?
It can be both, right?
Okay.
So the way that we define it is in the digital realm, the token is the truth, as long as the framework of that token has been established. So how do you get to the token? That's the relevant part that a lot of people leave out. They just go, here's a token, trust that it's worth X, and don't question it, right? So, and that is the old kind of way and the cowboy times to do it. Versus now, especially with our tech stack that we have in Ovryde, is you can prove from start to initiation to actually inception of creating this token what has happened. So there's the underlying, the value is there, and now you can just focus on the digitalized light speed kind of transaction, knowing the underlying is there, safe and solid.
So this really helps to verify the real ownership interest behind.
Absolutely. Yes. Not just the ownership, but how it came to be, the proof of how did this ownership happen. Me just presenting a bar of gold and tokenizing it doesn't show where I got that bar of gold from, right? So it goes through the history and shows that kind of documentation wrapped into a secure token as
So
it should be.
if it's an asset that I own, it then shows complete ownership, how I came to own this verified.
If you want to add that trust factor to it, you can opt in for that, which of course we would advise to do so. But many other platforms do not allow that. They don't have the capability to show that, right? There's no additional purchase documents or, background checks that if you wanted to be a, trustworthy counterparty on an open market like that, why wouldn't you present that information? And so if you want to, you can opt in and present that. And if you don't, you don't have to. But that's the freedom of our platform. You can, technically you're capable of, and now it's up to the market to decide what do we want to have, right, for a fair marketplace.
Interesting. What is the Ovryde hybrid chain in terms that a non-technical viewer can understand?
So just to understand, Ovryde is the company, the organization that handles the client relationships, handles the legal framework, part of the benchmark association and group, while hybrid chain is the technology stack itself that actually makes these transactions work in, let's say, a business-oriented architecture. Yeah.
And why did Ovryde build its own architecture rather than rely entirely on an existing blockchain?
So there's no real single blockchain that can solve the various different kinds of breadth of what a product in a marketplace needs to be. So, the popular ones like Bitcoin has a purpose, right? Ethereum has a purpose. But to find a solution that has multiple different cases, like for our system, we have verified price feeds. We have verified digital identities. You can't put that all into one and the same chain. It'll either be too slow or too expensive or fast, but then again, just not secure enough, right? So there's kind of that triangle of trust that you have to find the right angle for. And so what Ovryde does is we have multiple subchains that converge into the main chain for all the proofs of the underlying. So it's a very different context and aspect. Instead of just using a established chain, we connect all the other chains, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and all those into one, and just allow for the different business case to be proven, trusted, verified by auditors and regulators, right? So it's a very, very deeply ingrained trust system that is not a silo like other chains are.
It's a term that I have come to know in having this discussion, even in a previous sit-down, this term self-custody. What does self-custody mean, and why do you consider it so important?
It is the paradigm of how our foundation of the technology has been built. So going back to why did I start this and why did I go into the realm of self-custody versus custodial, which is, what bigger exchanges, Binances, the FTXs of this world do and did. I am very, very proud to say I, as the platform developer, have no access to keys. And we can prove that by the way that we've established how these wallets are being generated, right? So we can prove in essence, the negative that we don't have it because you can verify how these keys and these wallets came to exist. Self-custody means you as the user are the sole person that has the password that essentially unlocks what you're going to be doing, right? And this started out way, way back when my brother actually, he lost some coin in the Mt. Gox hack, where in the naive days of, blockchain and the wild rodeo days, you could just set up an exchange on your laptop, and that on FTX, not FTX, but on Mt. Gox got hacked. Same thing with FTX in a certain way. And the users lost their coins. So with my history and computer security, et cetera, I said there must be a better way to build a better wallet. And so talking with the regulators, even before regulations were there, understanding where things would go and need to go, that is how I set out to build the self-custodial framework that we have today.
And what if that investor loses access to the wallet or private key?
On a normal self-custodial way, that means that they are locked out, because who does not have the key does not have access. Now, this is where Ovryde comes in. So Ovryde does have a recovery escrow functionality. Without us having access to it, this is a multi-party, multi-signature kind of a system. So in an emergency, like losing coins, or also just regular inheritance situation. There is a recovery process, but it involves, lawyers, it involves, escrow agents, it involves different entities. So there's no single one entity that in any way can just take control of your funds.
Can any one person or employee inside a company move millions of dollars alone, or can the system require several approvals?
There's no such thing as an approval system or an employee moving money in our system. That's the beauty. We don't have access to your money, right? If you look at our system, you're seeing encrypted bits and bytes flying through the system, validations taking place on multiple geolocated systems. There's no one user, not even myself as the lead developer and architect, that has access to coins, right?
Well, and why is that so important?
Because people can be corrupted, people can get greedy, and we've seen this time and time again with a lot of crypto projects, a lot of different, not even crypto projects, any normal business where even partners start fighting over money as soon as it's there, right? Or if it's not there. And that's the kind of problem that I just want to completely avoid, and you can verify that. That's the beauty of it, right? So blockchain isn't just Bitcoin. Blockchain is a technology behind the scenes that allows a lot more than what the general, let's say, person knows about it. And my aspect or my approach to blockchain is keep it in the background. Don't make it be intrusive or in the way of interacting with what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to send a transaction, send a transaction. If it's blockchain doing it in the background, that's great, because for an auditor or a specialist to come in, they can verify everything is good and solid. But the end user, the mom and dad that just want to, do international remittance, send money home or whatever, they don't care about that complexity, and they shouldn't, right? That's where we come in and take care of that.
How are investor eligibility sanctions and transfer restrictions built into this technology?
They're deeply ingrained, right? So part of how we can verify, as I mentioned before, how did you get to that real estate, or how did I get to that bar of gold, as that example? We do have, for the parties that want to have, the benchmark obviously wants that and should have that, especially in the jurisdiction that we operate in. There are background checks, there are sanction list checks, there are verification of where these coins came from, right? If somebody's transferring in from the outside. We make sure that didn't come from the dark net. We do make sure that didn't come from criminal activity. And these systems are in place today and very actively monitoring what's going on.
And those bad actors are still out there. I mean, as safe as a system may be, no matter how many checks and balances, there are the bad actors who are out there.
Bad actors exist, absolutely. And we need to protect ourselves, and we need to protect our market participants from those people.
Can this system automatically prevent an unauthorized person from purchasing or receiving an asset?
Yes, it can. It can. It cannot take away assets, but it can stop assets from flowing into the main marketplace. And the way that we do that, especially with Benchmark, is we have two layers, two rings. We have the outer ring that allows the user to make a deposit. That is their self-custodial aspect of it. But if they want to move it into, let's say, the inner core, where they can buy and trade different assets, tokens, digital assets, etc., there's that additional verification layer before you can move them in. And so that is exactly where we check and pre-validate before things could even move into the open marketplace on our systems.
And what kinds of things are you looking for in that validation?
There are histories, obviously. So there are certain addresses that, for instance, let's say an account gets hacked, right? Somewhere on some other exchange, an account gets hacked. There are different channels where these exchanges communicate with other exchanges, that if you ever see coins come in from this previous hacked address, freeze them, block them, report them, etc. So we're part of that network.
It's kind of like a stop list or a no-fly list.
It's basically a blacklist, essentially, blacklist. Right? So if somebody would come in with stolen coins or reported stolen coins, we would immediately freeze those. We wouldn't let them in the inner circle. We can't move them away. We don't have access, but we can stop a wallet from broadcasting a further transfer, right? That's the only thing we can do.
And what independent testing is used to verify your cybersecurity and performance claims?
Yeah. So we have constant and daily automated audits that run over our system. So in the computer science and security world, CVEs are, a bulletin board of threats and hacks that have been established and published. And so we run those tests every day, the latest updates, the latest patches against our system. And we get a comprehensive report, which we have to add into our ISO certification and SOC 2 reports every quarter. Besides that, we have live pen testing with specialists and experts that come in and they verify our cryptography. And nowadays we have AI on top of it. So specialized AI that is here to literally try to break into the system, running against our infrastructure.
So that's the way you're testing the system?
Yes, correct.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. All right. And what does quantum resilient security mean? And is that protection necessary today?
Very good question. And yes, it is very, very important today. So the quantum aspect, and that is something that I've been involved with for the better part of half a decade, is we need to make sure that our data today is safe from the quantum threat that will appear very clearly in the next very few years, right? So just like we had the Y2K issue back in the 2000s, it's the Y2Q situation that's happening, where quantum computers can basically slice through today's cryptography like a hot knife through butter. And the way that we have already implemented this is we use specialized hardware and software that injects these systems with what is called strong randomness or entropy to protect current established infrastructure from this kind of threat later.
If hypothetically the platform is attacked or fails, what systems exist to protect investors and to restore the operation?
Yeah. So at the very, very baseline, the wallet is essentially your access point. And the wallet controls natively various different chains. So through this wallet, you can connect to the Bitcoin network, you can connect to the Ethereum network, etc. You don't need us as an infrastructure to be able to pull your coins out of the system. So let's say for some crazy reason, I can get into reasons why that is extremely unlikely, but let's say for the extreme reason that we're not available, you still have the cryptographic assets on your machine, in your control, that you can redirect them. It's technically not as easy as then just working directly with us, but let's say we're gone, you'd still have what you need to be safe and move your coins into a different place.
Fantastic. This has been quite a learning experience for me, Sean. I have to admit that in many ways, for as prevalent as this technology is, and for as big as it is in some spaces, there's still many out there who are skeptical, don't understand it, and don't want to be bothered. Those folks who are watching, what do you say to them to give them that reassurance that this is a safe platform?
Well, first of all, I understand them, right? I understand them, and I don't think hammering blockchain technology and all these buzzwords, seemingly buzzwords, to the audience is going to help, right? I believe there is a lot of educational knowledge that has to be, read into, and I don't think people will want to take all of that complexity into their daily life already. So where I advise to start is, hey, start easy. Fire up a small Google search about, hey, explain blockchain in its simplest form. Like I'm five. Explain like I'm five, right? I love the ELI5.
Yep.
Add that to what you're searching for, and then get into it a bit. Understand self-custody, understand custodial systems, which is the opposite. And then check and verify how, certain proofs can be checked and audited and expand from there. But just diving into blockchain is the thing, and you need to start writing. Don't go there. Just you don't need a PhD in computer science to run a blockchain, right?
That is very comforting. Thank you. Some of us would never get to it.
Yeah. No. Just think about what you want to do, and then Google, would this also work with blockchain? And if yes, how, right? Or how to be safe. Like, check those things out. Ask your AI bot, right?
Definitely. Sean Prescott, thank you very much stopping by and talking to us. We were able to pack a lot of information into that segment. Thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All the best.
So after this break, we ask who will use the platform and what opportunities this venture could open up for Bahamian businesses and investors. Stay with us. We're going to have more on the record right after this. And welcome back. In this segment, we examine the business behind the technology the clients Bahamas Ovryde hopes to attract. Joining me is Patrick Burke, a capital markets executive whose task is to connect the technology with the institutions, companies, and investors expected to use it. Sir, welcome to On the
Thank
Record.
you. Thank you for
Let's
having me.
dive right in. I almost said welcome to the Bahamas, but I understand you spent a lot of time here, so I'm just going to say welcome back.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Good to be back.
What is your specific commercial responsibility within Bahamas Ovryde?
Really, it's connecting investment dollars into the organization, as well as user case client base into the organization. And there's going to be tremendous amount of opportunities for Bahamas Ovryde as it moves forward. The infrastructure of putting what Julian has built and what Sean and David have put together, it's sort of a 1 + 1 = 3 right off the bat, and moves to 5 to 7 to 10 based on the flow of activity that goes through that organization. And it's going to be a huge benefit for the island, for Bahamas, because it's based here and it's going to be global in nature. So a lot of the clients we're going to be bringing aren't going to be at one end of the island. They're going to be from Europe and North America and Asia and Australia. So there's lots of opportunities here once this is all up and running. And it's very exciting.
That is hugely exciting, as you've said. How is the client acquisition for the financial infrastructure company different from selling a normal product?
To answer that question, Jerome, I'll have to step back. Sure. Every management team and every boardroom of every public company and private companies are looking at what technology and AI is doing to their business. So that's either directly to their business in terms of efficiencies, or protecting themselves because they're on the defense, or what's happening to their marketplace. So as a result of that, there is just a myriad of things going on at the same time. Fortunately for this entity, Sean and David have been working at this for a long, long time, and they've tailored to exactly where we are in the marketplace. And as a result of that, the opportunity sets are going to be huge.
Who is the first ideal client for this platform?
Well, it depends. I mean, that's going to be up to management and the board to decide how they want to tactically approach the strategy. So is it going to be wallet as a service? Is it going to be the exchange? Is it going to be tokenization? Those conversations will be had strategically amongst the management teams. But there are various streams that are going to go through this efficiency frontier that present opportunities all over the place. So it's not going to be one single, but they may really focus on one or two that are obvious to get wins off the start.
Well, would you think they would be private companies, investment funds, banks, or investors?
I think it's going to be a little bit a combination of them all, but it'll be initially a lot of clients that are looking for services and see the efficiency that this company has brought together. The old legacy financial services is getting more clunky as it becomes more risk adverse, and it becomes a lot more difficult to deal with. So the amount of clients that are looking for a platform like this is only growing. What it was 10 years ago versus 5 years ago versus 3 years ago versus today, and what it's going to be next year, is going to be a complete growth trajectory that this organization will take advantage of.
So this has the potential to really be a seismic shift.
Well, the seismic shift's happening all around it. It's just, are you going to be a part of it? Is technology and AI going to be a headwind or a tailwind? And everyone has to make those decisions because they're all going to be affected one way or the other. And what Julian and David and Sean have put together is a very bold stroke. And they've decided that they're going to take what they have, the assets they have, and make them work for you. So it's going to be very interesting to watch.
I want to talk about what makes a private company suitable for tokenization.
Well, I mean, it can be all sorts of different rationale, as Sean went through. It can be cost, speed, and it could be just having your own governance and your own sovereignty, which was mentioned earlier. The reality is, in the traditional world that I grew up in, which is capital markets, if a private company needs access to capital, it's usually a 6 to 8 week process. It's expensive. It takes long. Orderous time, and that's only getting more and more difficult with regulatory frameworks becoming more onerous to deal with. In the new digital age, that 8 weeks could be 10% of the costs, and it could be done in less than a week, maybe even over the weekend. Wow. So I'll use an example that we're using in the First Nations in Canada have a lot of assets. They're locked up, water assets, timber assets, land, but they have no liquidity. So they can go through Julian's business and tokenize water rights. Well, the whole market's looking to be able to invest into water, but there's no water companies out there. So it gives you a real life example of something that we're working on right now in the law firm that I'm dealing with that is live.
Mm-hmm. And are there companies or assets that you would refuse to place on the platform?
It would always come down to any sort of risk in terms of regulatory or reputational. It all comes down to that. As Sean was very, he was right to the point in terms of addressing a lot of your questions. The reality is there are bad actors in every part of the world. Mm-hmm. That's not going to change. That's human nature. But you can better protect yourself through this technology than you can in anything we've known in the past, which comes back to human error.
You mentioned the global potential of this, the fact that this is a global company looking for global clients. Which markets are you targeting first? The Bahamas, the wider Caribbean, Latin America, Europe?
Well, I think it's going to flow like a river, the path of least resistance, right? So I think initially it'll be onboarding existing clients that both sides have to the platform, proof of concept, move through, educate, but it will not take long to people to understand exactly who this company is and what this company can do. It will be very, very fast. And it'll be us out, having those conversations, because up until today, this afternoon, no one knows who we are. Except for us.
It's so true.
Yeah.
What kinds of investors, though, are you expected to participate during the initial phase?
Well, there's two. I would look at it from two perspectives here. One, we may be looking for investment dollars because it's going to grow so fast. So it would be a tactical, strategic partner would be ideal. And then from there, it'll be the use case examples of clients that want to use the system because it's faster, it's better, it's cheaper, it's the way of the future.
What would persuade, though, a cautious institutional investor to trust a new platform like this?
Well, they're going to have to do their due diligence like anything else they invest in. And fortunately, as you saw very clearly from Sean, we're there. I mean, this isn't something we're building. This is something that exists today and has been tested, beyond what can be done. So if you can't get your head around it, and a lot of people won't, for all the reasons that we all know, there's a cautious growth to this, but it's happening very, very fast, and it's not going the other way.
How do you then convince a private company that a digital offering is preferable to traditional fundraising?
It would just go down to what are the needs of a private company. So what is that individual needs of that water company or that real estate company? And what are the merits of going through the traditional long form prospectus style of investment to get your story out, to get capital, to get knowledge, or through this process. So it would just be really making those analysis, due diligence as you go. But this is much more efficient, and that's where we're going. It's just it's going to take a while for us to all get there.
Interesting. I want to talk about liquidity and what it is, and why is it essential to the success of this business?
Well, liquidity is critical in the sense that you can I use the example of the First Nations owning illiquid assets. There's stranded value there and lots of value, but if they are not able to access it in terms of fiat currency, in terms of cash or whatever, what good is it if you're trying to put groceries on the table, right? So if you're in the investment,
it is of no use.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not of no use. It's just it's the less liquidity, the less opportunities you have to use that value.
Who will provide the buyers and sellers necessary to create this active market?
Well, initially it will be, again, onboarding the clients that already exist, and then from there introducing clients and market segments into what this offering is and what that does for them, and that will be part of the process starting tomorrow.
I want to go back to something a bit. How will you prevent tokenized investments from becoming assets that then exist digitally but cannot actually be sold?
Well, they can be, okay, so if we have an asset that's created digitally, the idea is that it's going to have liquidity within its ecosystem. Mm-hmm. All that being said, like any other assets, some are going to be more liquid than others. So it's going to be, it's going to be one off ramp for liquidity, and it will grow. I mean, the markets are growing, so the liquidity is going to come.
And how will traditional money enter and leave the platform?
Just like they would in any other investment decision. They will come into the platform for a purpose. They will use the platform for a purpose, and they will exit the platform for a purpose.
Give me an example of a purpose that traditional money would enter.
So I'm just going to stay with the same example for simplicity. So there is a need for an ability to invest in pure water today. There's an investment need. It's well known in the marketplace. If the First Nations decide that they're going to tokenize some of their water assets, put them on the platform, it's going to allow people to have access to water through purchase of those tokens. So that's going to create liquidity upon itself. So the decision for them to go to market to offer those assets to the investment public is based on the fact that there's a need and there's a demand and a need on both sides. So it'll be very traditional from that perspective. It's just the efficiency and what can be done through Bahamas Ovryde is very powerful.
What banking and liquidity provider relationships are already confirmed, and which remain under discussion? Are you at liberty to say?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll move along. And how I'm sure there are a lot of people asking this exact same question. And how will the company generate revenue?
Well, the government, it'll have a revenue generating business plan that is in place as we start. So we have an idea what, and these markets can be, excuse the term, pun, benchmarked, but there are markets out there that give you indications of what those costs are. What I'm here to tell you, and what the gentlemen before me are here to tell you is this is happening. It is faster, it is cheaper, it's more secure, and it is the future. So it's in place.
And what opportunities could this platform create for Bahamian businesses who are seeking capital? Because I think that has been...
That's a good one.
Yeah, and that's been a question that's been raised.
And it's a, if you look at it from that lens, and that's as a Bahamian, that's the right way to look at it. I think Julian mentioned real estate, for example. So, as a tourism economy with a lot of real estate assets, are there going to be an opportunity to take those assets at a higher valuation than they're being valued today, offer them to the open market of the world, which this platform can do, and garner the higher valuation to those initial investors? That would be an example. More liquidity, more access to markets, generally speaking, bring enhanced value and liquidity.
And how can Bahamian investors potentially use the platform to build wealth while still managing risk responsibility?
Once again, it comes down to that individual investor. What is the horizon? What is the risk profile? What are the objectives? Just like in any traditional investment process, those fundamental pieces don't go away. It's just going to be, how do we use that platform to make it more efficient, more valuable, and a better experience?
Final question. What must happen from your perspective before Bahamas Ovryde can honestly say that it is ready for the market?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say it's ready for the market yesterday. Okay, it's now been a number of months of putting this deal together with Julian and the founders of Ovryde. It's going to offer Bahamians a huge opportunity, and the fact that we're bringing global markets to this location that's been set up in the Bahamas is going to be a huge opportunity and a big access point for the native population.
Having spent time here working in a previous role,
right,
how do you see this really changing the local market? How do you see it changing the Bahamas that the financial services that having worked here previously?
Well, it's not going to be any different than the rest of the world, because the whole world is changing today. As we see everything on television, what's going on with AI, what's going on with technology, there's not an industry that's not being affected. What's wonderful for the local community here is Julian has stood up and recognized that and taken a bold step forward on behalf of his country, and identified the technology, understanding the business that he's been in for many, many years, and understanding how that goes together. as someone who is not doing that, you're being left behind. So he has taken a very, very bold step to digitalize what is traditionally a very sort of old world financial system. It's all happening. It's happening. So it's not going to just be what's going on here in the Bahamas. It's happening all through Europe, all through Asia, all through North America, Latin America. It's happening everywhere.
The partnership between Ovryde and Benchmark, do you see this as a model for similar partnerships in the industry? Obviously, this is unique in what it's creating, but to be able to bring something like this together, do you see that as being a model for other things in the market?
I do. If you think about it, Ovryde is not going to build what Julian's built. Julian's not going to build what Ovryde built.
I think that's important.
It's very important. So there are these opportunities where 1 + 1 = 3, like that, and then it compounds from there. So the whole world is, as I mentioned earlier in this conversation, the whole world is figuring out how to make technology work for them, not against them. And this is a very good example of that, and there'll be many more.
All right. Patrick Burke, thank you very much for having the conversation with us and helping us to understand what this all means. It's for many of us, it's new. And I think it's important that we're helping people to understand layer by layer what this all means. And thank you very much.
Good. It's new for all of us.
All right. And thank you. All the best to you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll have some final thoughts. Stick with us. We're going to be back right after this. So technology may change the form of an investment, but it does not remove the fundamentals. Investors must still understand what they own. Companies must still prove their value. Markets must still provide transparency. And regulators must still enforce the rules. And of course, no platform, digital or otherwise, can promise returns without risk. The opportunity presented by Bahamas Ovryde is the possibility of building a more efficient bridge between businesses seeking capital and investors seeking access. So again, thanks to Sean Prescott and Patrick Burke for joining us, and to Julian Brown and David Caliber for the wider Benchmark Ovryde team and for allowing us inside this developing venture. And we thank you for watching. I'm Jerome Sawyer. This has been On the Record. Have yourself a good night.